Hello and welcome. I'm here today with Elwin Robinson, the founder of Lionheart Herbs, creator of Health Mastery training program and membership site, as well as the author of The Easy Exhaustion Cure. My name is Ania Nowicki I'm from vitalityinfood.com, and I'm also a holistic health coach working with people with digestive issues and energy issues, looking to really be their best, working from a standard British diet and trying to make those steps into a healthier world, healthier life. So, hi Elwin, how are you today?
You do an excellent job at it, if I may say so.
Thank you. As do you. How are you?
I'm excellent, thank you. Yeah, I've been on the phone for the last 8 hours now with clients, coaching them. So I think that's probably the ideal time to do this particular conversation, right?
Fantastic. Yeah. So I thought that a really good theme for today would be to talk about coaching. Both of us are coaches, and so it'd be a really interesting discussion for us to have and record and share with people about really the purpose of coaching, because coaching is not the same as teaching necessarily. And I think for me, one of the key points about coaching is that it helps people to really embed new habits and to actually create real transformation. It's not a passive process like it can be going to see a doctor, or, for example, just, going to a lecture. So in your words, what would you say that the purpose of coaching is for you?
That's a really great question, and I've been pushed to define it more and more by people, obviously. One of my kind of role models in life, even though it's recently discovered, only like 4 years ago, but like a big influence in my life is Anthony Robbins. And I believe he claims he's the person who came up with the term coach. Now, I don't think that's quite true, because Timothy Leary, who is like a really interesting kind of psychologist guy and a behavioural therapist and all the rest of it, his personality test is still used in a lot of US institutions. He first came up with a book called The Game of Life, where he referred to life as a game. And he was saying that in the future you wouldn't have therapists and consultants, you would have coaches, people who help you to play the game better. And then I think Tony Robbins he says he's read over 1,000 books, so that's probably one of them, and he'd forgotten. That's where he got it from. So anyway, I kind of go along with those people, basically. That's why I'm kind of mentioning this. So I would say that a coach is someone who is there to do whatever it takes to help you to live up to your highest potential, to live the most fulfilled life, and then to a lesser degree, and this is what a lot of people also focus on, but also important, to help you to reach your results and goals.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why I put it that way is because you may have a goal of, I have people coming to me all the time with goals of, say, losing, 30 pounds in weight, and then we end up talking about what the nature of life is all about, why they are even alive, which I know you've done with me, Anya. What's truly important to them, why they have these addictive patterns, and Now, but the difference, that may sound a little bit like therapy again. So the difference for me is that a coach is always focused on, right, what's going on now? What do you ultimately want to achieve in this area of your life, or in your life in general, and what do you need to do to get there?
Absolutely. And it's not so much delving in the past and digging
up. Not at all.
No, absolutely not. I think that's a big difference, really. Fantastic.
Definitely. And I know you have a slightly different perspective to coaching than me, don't you, Anya? It's a bit more like facilitating. So
That's right.
What's your kind of perspective on it?
Well, I'm a very much a believer that people are ready at different points in their lives for and open to new concepts and new challenges. And there will be times when someone is not ready for a particular new concept or idea, or to try something new, so therefore I always encourage the person who I coach to lead at their own pace, and also to try and come up with their own answers. I think it's really powerful when someone is able to to come up with the answer themselves, and they're a lot more bought into the whole change. I'm sure you do that in maybe even in similar ways as well. I'm not prescriptive either. I mean, I do obviously encourage people to try new things, even if they're unsure of them at first, and give them lots of ideas of how they can experiment with these new things. But I don't go into things like herbs like you do, or supplements so much. That's something that I leave to people with a lot more experience, like you, for example.
Yeah, I think it's partly what you want to specialise in, right? So you never were particularly interested in learning about all that like I was. So, but I think there's something deeper there which you're talking about, which is the difference between being kind of facilitatory or directive.
Yeah.
And I would hope that I do both, but I must admit that I have this kind of this enjoyment of directive, which is like the NLP approach. Basically, in NLP, a lot of teaching is how to direct people into getting the results that they want.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that it's useful to have these different approaches in the world, because different people respond to different approaches, and someone who might come to you, for example, might not find my approach so useful, whereas conversely, someone who might come to me might find you too much or too pushy. But it's the wonder of the world to have such different people who are able to offer very different approaches. Also, I think I think you work with people who have already been invested in their own health for a long time, whereas I'm working with people who are more at the beginning of their journey to making those improvements, which is a big difference as well. The other thing which is really interesting is that a lot of personal trainers who consider themselves coaches, and you also have nutritionists as well. They're very prescriptive in the sense that they may give out food plans and give a list of, I don't know, maybe even 15 different supplements that someone needs to be taking. And sometimes there isn't even a follow-up with that, which I think can be really dangerous, and also can be a complete waste of money as well.
Yeah.
Have you had any experience with people coming to you from having had that experience?
All the time. Almost everyone who comes to me is someone who's tried all kinds of people who are too directive. Like I say, I try and strike my own balance between the two. And a lot of the time people come to me and they'll say, what do I do? What is right? What am I allowed? And I'm like, well, I don't know. What works for you? What position are you in? I mean, truth is truth, but it's also contextual. So for one person, it's definitely true to say that all sugars are a bad idea for them because they have blood sugar problems. So that is true for them, and there's no point in them kidding themselves and pretending that they're fine with, a coffee with sugar or honey or whatever. If that's the truth for them, then they've got to accept that truth for them. But that doesn't mean it's necessarily true for their wife or their daughter or their neighbour. So it's understanding that truth kind of varies. So the biggest challenge that I come across with practitioners is definitely lack of follow through, but I think also very keenly this lack of understanding that truth is contextual.
Yeah.
And I think that really involves developing your mind. I don't want to sound too arrogant, but what the hell? I spent years learning how to study my mind. This isn't something that I was born with. It's something that I kind of locked into as a practice. Learning to see beyond black and white, because none of us are born with an ability to see truth contextually.
No.
Women tend to be better at it than men.
Yeah.
But we all have to learn. We all start off black and white. Everything is always good and bad to begin with. And we have to learn. It's not just about good and bad. It's about sometimes this is true, sometimes that is true.
Yeah. There's and there are a couple of other things which I just thought of as you were speaking, is that there are some practitioners who are trained in a specific method, and then they don't, and just like you say, they don't go then and seek out the truth for themselves. They just follow this one method with the belief that that's the be all and end all, and don't realize that actually it might be something that works for them and completely doesn't work for anyone else, or for the bigger section of society. And I think
Medical doctors are always accused of that, aren't they? Like
I
doctors
think
just want to give you drugs, and surgeons just want to cut you open. But actually, it's true. Herbalists just want to give you herbs. Acupuncturists just want to stick needles in you. You know, psychotherapists just want you to talk about your childhood. I mean, like everyone has their own aim, and I think that's where a coach, even though it's hard to define, is almost the most advanced of roles, because it is taking on whatever a person needs in order to be able to help them. And sometimes you do step outside your zone, don't you? I'm sure you've had it happen, I've had it happen. You know,
absolutely.
like with serious illnesses, I often have to tell people, listen, I just don't have any experience with, say, leukemia. You know, I don't know how to help you. I'm an expert on health, not illness. So I'm not necessarily going to be able to help you through that. I don't have those skills. Maybe actually surgery is better in that case. No, not for leukemia, but you know what I mean. I don't know. There's always like another option. And you always have those instances, don't you? Whenever you have a dogmatism, whenever you have some belief, there's always at least one example that you come across where your belief is not true. And I think the test of a strong or an active mind is if they can withstand that and admit that what they believed was true actually isn't sometimes, then it's okay, and then you have learning and growth. But I think a lot of people just shut down and like, oh, the client wasn't cooperating, the patient wasn't cooperating, you know, and then that's where people come to me, because they've tried, and you know, practitioners have been dogmatic with them, haven't been able to help them, and they're looking for someone who can be directive and say, hey, okay, do step 1, 2, and 3, but not step 1, 2, and 3 because I read it in my book, not step 1, 2, and 3 because my teacher told me, step 1 and 2 or 3 because that's right for me.
Fantastic. And in terms of coaching, we did talk about this a little bit at the beginning, but I really like to underline this. The benefits of coaching I see as being far more long term than just dipping into something like you would you know, going to a doctor with, you know, a particular pain, or seeing a physiotherapist for a particular pain or something like that. Coaching is much more of a much bigger and more profound change. Can you give examples of some of the changes that you've seen in people? I think that would be really interesting to share with others.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously there's all the physical stuff, you know, people whose skin clears up and they're able to sleep properly again, and they're able to eat well again, and, you know, but to me the more profound stuff is stuff like going from not having the energy or motivation to get out of bed to actively working to some project which contributes to the world around them. You know, or going from a place of feeling, you know, depression and like life isn't worth living, to feeling like they just want to, you know, actively go out and connect and share with the world, you know. These things to me are more powerful. I think the coaching in the area of emotions is often where I specialise in and where I do best in, ironically, probably because it's something that I had to learn, you know, getting people from a place of feeling any kind of negative emotions. And again, this has come up more in the last month than ever before. I have been more brutally honest and harsh and ruthless with people than I probably ever have in my life in the context of coaching, and also sometimes people emailing me and stuff about the potential of it. And I've also never had people be more happy. Yeah. I had one person who probably knows more about health than you and I put together, Ania. One of my health mastery clients, and yet they still had a really severe illness. And it was all to do with their mindset. It was all to do with their outlook in life. They were all just treating life as a victim, basically. Nothing was their fault. They were not at cause in their life. They could not even understand the possibility of creating something better. And so my intervention of just being really harsh and saying, listen, you're crying right now, but you're feeling sorry for yourself. That doesn't really help. You know, what you need to do is start focusing on what you do want, not focusing on what's upsetting you. These kind of, you know, really simple distinctions to you and I can really blow people away if they're given at the right time.
Yeah.
Like if you hear that in a seminar when you're already in a good mood, you go, oh, yeah. But if you hear that when you're like in the depths of the pits of despair, that can be really powerful.
I agree, and for most of my clients, I found that as well. That I'd say most, not all, mind you, but the greater majority of them, they come to me with health problems, and and within quite a few short weeks, they see big differences in energy, in digestion, in skin. I mean, those are the first things to improve, really, aren't they? And then it's always the emotional things that hold them back from the sort of the next level of wellness. Yeah. And once that's cracked, and it's like this person becomes, sees the world in a completely different way, and everything changes, and that is massively empowering for the coach, but even more so for the coachee, the person who's come to you in the first place, just to be able to perceive the world in a different place, and feel that they are able to fulfill their dreams and be the person that they want to be, rather than be stuck in a place where, like you say, everything is done to them rather than them being in control.
And that's a long process, right, to get from being what I call a victim to what I call a creator. But really, it's the only one that's worthwhile. And the victim comes in subtle forms. It can be feeling sorry for yourself, blaming other people, all that kind of stuff, which most of us know is the victim. But more subtle forms of the victim that we don't often realise is like, oh, I don't know how to do that, so therefore I won't do it. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. Just because you don't know how to do something, you can find out. You can learn. Or if you really don't want to ever do it yourself personally, you can influence someone else to do it for you if you give them the right motivation, So it's like, is anything impossible? And I guess I really learnt this mindset more than anything else from Richard Bandler. I don't know if this is someone who you've heard of, but he's like one of the co-founders of NLP. And when you listen to his NLP training, it's mainly just him telling like funny anecdotes from his life, although he claims to be putting all kinds of like crazy programs in your mind which helps you function better. And I kind of think he might be telling the truth. I'm not quite sure. A lot of people are a bit dubious about Richard, but just listening to his stories of the things that he's got away with, just incredible. Like working with schizophrenics and people with catatonia and just these conditions which were considered completely incurable, and going in there and just being so absolutely outrageous that it just shocked the patient out of it. I remember one story which I love was a patient who believed that he was Jesus Christ. He was on medication, he had ECT, electroshock treatment, all this sort of thing. Nothing had worked. And Richard came on there on Good Friday with 2 big blocks of wood and started measuring him like across and up and down. And then he said, I hear you're a carpenter, could you help me build a cross? And the guy started to really panic, and he goes, what for? And he goes, I think you know what for. And then the guy, he thinks that Richard's deadly serious, so he starts going, no, I'm Mark, I'm a schizophrenic, I'm delusional, I have a delusional complex, I'm not really Jesus. And cured for life. He goes out and gets a sales job and becomes a productive member of society. So those kind of stories, especially when you hear thousands of them, like remind you over and over again.
Thousands of them, absolutely thousands, and they all serve to demonstrate that the mind is so much more powerful than we give it credit for, and that we can heal ourselves really from anything that we want to.
Yes.
I mean, you hear the stories about cancer as well, and so and people literally on their deathbeds. One of my own personal stories actually is of my grandmother, and she was very old and frail and holding on to her life, and she wasn't very well at all, but she still kept holding on, and her husband, her second husband, who she married after my grandfather died, who she loved she loved both of them. She was very lucky. She had 2 loves of her life, and she held on until she found out that he died in the night, and when he died, that was it. She just, she let go, and she was just holding on for him the whole time. And that happens.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. Things like fulfillment and love and purpose, and these are the things that really make life worth living. So, yes, health is about your exercise and diet and routines and all the rest of it. These are important factors, but if you don't really have a reason to be alive, they're not necessarily going to be enough, right? It's a really crucial distinction. Now, one of the questions I have for you, Ania, is like, one of the things that I like is, even though I completely agree with you about the long-term commitment, in fact, I didn't do coaching with people until I started my health mastery thing, which is a 9-month commitment. And that's because I'm not coaching people without them committing for that long, because I know that it could just be a waste of time, right? Because basically the process of coaching, as you say, is getting deeper and deeper and deeper until you find the ultimate reason why the person is not already living the life of their dreams, and it's some version of being a victim. And then we need to, and other issues as well, and we need to help them out with that. And it does take time. It doesn't have to take as long as we sometimes think. I mean, I've had turnarounds very, very quickly suddenly, and then that's awesome. If we've dedicated 9 months to doing that, and then they manage it in the first 3 weeks, and then we'll spend the next 8 months and 1 week looking at how they're going to create a new self and make the world a better place. So it's all good, right? But yeah, you need to allow the time, kind of just in case. That's the way that I look at it. But still, even despite that, I also really don't like the idea of encouraging any kind of dependence. So my attitude is very much, if you don't want to work with me, fine. Even though I'm saying it's a 9-month commitment, at any point people can leave. There's no contract, there's no legal, there's no debt chasers going to come after you. I mean, that's it. It's a commitment between you and I, but that's it. And so I'm not trying to create dependence. I never have. And so for me, what's also really important is to get people to learn to coach themselves. And I realise that's a lot of what I do. When people come to me with stuff, I will obviously calibrate it depending on what is going on for them, but I'll generally tell them the kind of things that I'll tell myself. And I think that's the thing that often shocks people. Like I had someone a couple of days ago come at me with existential despair. They were just like, life is meaningless, da-da-da-da-da. And I think most people would go, oh, well, it's not that bad, or, I know how you feel, or whatever. No, I basically treated them the same way that I would treat myself, just to go through it, like step by step, looking at the whole thing, being as objective as possible, realising it's just a feeling. You don't want to be a slave to a feeling, do you? All that kind of thing. And
well, this is what's so helpful with, and I know that you've shared your story before online, that it's so helpful that to know that it's so helpful as a coach to have gone through some really big experiences in your life, because it's helped you collect these tools and really been a massive motivation to learn as many tools as possible to be able to deal with these kinds of questions. And certainly my own experiences, which have been
have you been in the dark side, Ania?
Yeah, my experiences in the dark side. I've gone through my own bout of depression and hardship, and these things have really helped me to, firstly, to understand where someone else is coming from, but also to collect a number of different tools that I can share with other people to help, so that they can learn to help themselves. And
that's often what you do, right? You just instinctively come out with what works. And you're going to select, obviously the bigger amount of tool bag that you have, the Batman style utility belt, the better. But so anyway, what was the point of the self-coaching thing? Oh yeah, what I wanted to say is, so I'm really a believer. Like, ideally, what I give people in my first extra long coaching session is a framework to make me obsolete. Now, no one actually uses it properly just because we've done it in one session, so I'm kind of reminding them of it over and over again. But that's always like kind of my ultimate goal, is to make myself obsolete and to have them have a coach in their head. And funny enough, another client said this to me recently. They had a big shift out of the victim, and they were really like doing everything in their own best interest, really for the first time, even though having known what it is for decades. And they said the reason they were doing it is because they had a little voice in their head. And it was my voice saying, does that really serve you? Is that really the best thing for you right now? The kind of things that I'd say. And they'd like kind of internalise that. And I was really pleased about that. And I think there's a good chance that person might soon say, well, I don't want to work with you anymore. And I'll go, great. Because they don't need to. They've internalised it. They're coaching themselves. If you're basically always asking yourself the question, is this in alignment with my highest purpose? I'll just give you a free one now if you're watching this. I think if you can consistently ask that and get an answer, you don't need a coach. If you can always ask with every decision you make, is this in alignment with my highest purpose in life? Does this serve my highest purpose in life? And you can get an answer. That's pretty much all there is to living an exceptional life. However, almost all of our operating system is not that. It's, is it right? Should I do it?
Should I do this? That's a
Do
big
I want
one.
to even?
Yeah.
No, want to is better than should, but still, it's not like, who cares if you want to do something if it doesn't serve your highest purpose, right? So, in reality, people like us are desperately needed because we can remind people over and over again, it's not about should, it's not about shouldn't, it's not about what you want to do, it's about what serves your highest purpose.
I do think also that even people who are able to answer those questions and coach themselves, sometimes it is useful to have another person who you can trust to just be there for you and bounce your ideas off of and learn from, and certainly I have some clients like that who they're pointed in the right direction. They just need a little bit of extra support, for want of a better word.
Do you know some of those intimately?
Of course.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I use the word need for a reason. I'm saying there's not a need for a coach.
No, of course not. There isn't a need.
But ironically, generally the people who are most successful, who need coaching the least, invest the most in it because they know it will help them to get to the next level.
They understand how helpful it is. Yeah. Absolutely. I don't think I know any coaches who don't have a coach themselves.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I was one for a while, but not anymore. We eventually get one over. I know what you mean.
And the other thing is why coaching and seeing somebody regularly is useful is to embed new habits. So, we've already spoken about the mind, and that is absolutely crucial for health. But the other thing is, habit forming can be quite challenging sometimes. And I'm sure that there are many people who are watching this right now, and certainly I'm one of these people as well, that I can learn something new and do it for a week. I'm really into it and I'm very motivated, and then something happens, there's something changes in my life, and then I forget about it. And actually having somebody there to remind me about why I'm doing that and why that's important, why that's a priority is really useful.
Absolutely. Perspective, that's the key thing. Someone to give you perspective, someone to help you zoom out. That's my kind of term for it. We all tend to get too zoomed in on our own particular preoccupation, our own thing. To have someone to help you to zoom out and in the greater context of things, ultimately it is important, but there's also all this other stuff that's important.
Yeah, right. And not only that, you also, there are people who, and I've had this happen, people who are so focused on just one thing, and they feel that they can't move forward until they've achieved this just one thing, and that one thing might not even be serving them. Just like you were saying before, it's not serving their higher purpose. It's not really helping them be a healthier person, helping them feel better about themselves. But somehow they've got in their mind they're holding on to this one thing, and it's useful to have a coach to be able to say to you, actually, it's okay if you decide that that's not serving you anymore. Maybe it served you in the past. It's not serving you anymore, and you can let that go. I'm sure you've had that experience as well.
Learning how to let go is really powerful. Absolutely. It's one of the key things to all of this. So Ania, I'm interested, so probably my top kind of self-coaching tip is to always ask yourself that question very simply, does this serve my ultimate purpose? Now, of course, that does indicate that you actually know or have some feeling of what your ultimate purpose is. And if you don't, then again, come to a coach. They'll help you work that out, right? But assuming that you have some idea or some feeling or some vision for that, to ask yourself with every decision if it serves your purpose or your purposes is really cool. Do you have like a tip like that, or even several tips that you can share with the people watching now in terms of something that you can ask yourself? Yeah, well, I am.
Off the top of my head, I won't be able to come up with one right now. I mean, I do use that one, but that would be just a bit too easy to just say the same thing as you.
Well, it is the ultimate question, so yeah.
It's the ultimate question, and perhaps there really isn't any other question to ask. Does that serve me? Or does that serve my higher purpose? In terms of coaching tip or self-coaching tip, I mean, I think one of the most powerful things for me is that, that when you get into one of those feelings or moods where you become overwhelmed and you don't know what to do anymore, and you're just feeling stressed by everything in your world, the biggest tip I can give at that point is just to stop.
Okay.
Stop everything.
And do what?
And take time out. And I know that you would recommend breathing at this point, pranayama breathing, which I think is a very, very useful tool to give out to people, because when you remove yourself from the situation, often you can see things a lot more clearly.
Excellent. So get some space and maybe be more present. Is that what you mean as well by stopping?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Okay, I know you were supposed to be interviewing me. Sorry, I took over. So
no, that's okay.
What else have we got?
I'm just trying to see if there are any other questions which I had already prepared, as I like to be prepared. That would be useful to ask, because we have talked about quite a few things already.
Yes.
Yeah, I hear. Okay. Here's another question, which we've kind of maybe covered in some ways, but perhaps it'd be good to have an explicit answer for. I'm sure you've come across resistance from some clients, and certainly no.
Just kidding. Never. Yep.
And and every coach has had their clients who have been really resistant, and and sometimes a client is not is just the wrong fit, basically. Sure. What would your big piece of advice be for someone who has got real resistance to something that is right for them? So, for example, I'll give you one example.
Yep.
One is pranayama breathing, or breathing into your diaphragm, and I'm sure you can describe it much more eloquently than I can.
See my other videos. We won't cover that today. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of people find it difficult to actually incorporate that as a part of their routine, or even as a part of the way, or teach themselves to breathe in that way. What would you advise someone who is having problems actually embedding that habit?
That is an excellent question. Ironically, it wasn't learning about coaching which really helped me with this. It's learning about marketing or influence. And what you learn in marketing and influence is if you try and get someone to do something for your reasons, you are going to fail. It has to be for their reasons. So when I say that, this first session we do together, I try and make myself obsolete. What I'm talking about, what we do in that first session, is we get as great a degree of clarity as we possibly can, and it's normally like a 4-hour session, about what is really actually important to them. And in a very specific area, not necessarily in goals, because a lot of them can be red herrings, but in terms of emotions, in terms of feelings. So what feelings are the most important for them to experience? And most people are completely unaware of what they feel. They're completely aware of what feelings they prioritize, and yet these feelings really drive their lives. And people who don't like marketing and evil marketers, in fact, the reason why marketers are evil is because they are more aware of how you feel than you are. So they're able to pull your strings like a puppet, right? So if you don't want evil marketers getting you, then become aware of how you feel and become aware of what you prioritize, and then you'll see through all that stuff really easily. So it's helping people become aware of what they really prioritize feeling, and then when I'm really clear on that, and when we're both agreed on that, so your most important feelings, just as an example, are to feel safe and to feel secure and to feel in control. Yeah? Okay. Then I'm going to explain to them, here's why you need to do the breathing practice, not based on your values, not because you should, not even because you want to, but because they are going to get you the feeling which you claim is the most important thing in the world to you. And and if they have completely different feelings, I'll do it in a completely different context. So if their most important feelings are passion and enthusiasm and excitement, then we're going to explain the benefits based on those feelings. And if there are no benefits to a particular practice that I recommend for the feelings that they want to achieve, I won't recommend the practice because there's no point. right? So it has to actually be true as well. But people have to make that connection. Everyone sees that connection in theory, but almost no one has those connections in terms of actually neurons in the brain ready-made between the practice and the outcome. So you have to get them to go through what is the connection with the practice and the outcome after you are clear on what outcome actually matters to them. And if you do all of that, then they will do it. And there is only one exception when a person won't do it. And anyway, when they have resistance anyway. This is the only time basically that I find this doesn't work. And that is where the person has absolutely nothing that they really care about.
Yeah.
And that is very rare, but it does happen. And that can be tough. And that's because they're really emotionally shut down. And in fact, then
and that must be when they don't have an understanding really of what their higher purpose is. Because if you have a higher purpose,
exactly.
You have direction.
Exactly. So first, but I would say it's kind of like when the heart is very close, they tend to be very rigid in their bodies, very tense, very control orientated, very in the head, all that kind of thing. Then sometimes what I just described isn't enough, and that's because they're not really feeling anything strongly. So then the only way to help a client is to help them to have very strong feelings. Now, unfortunately, because their feelings have been very repressed for a very long time, when you help them to have strong feelings, the only kind of strong feelings that you're going to tend to help them have very much are these negative ones. Because they're the ones that are, stuck. That's the reason. So, people who are in that position will do almost anything to avoid any negative feeling, including numbness. And so, I would say, with most people, it's just a matter of them getting that what's truly important to them is tied to the activities which will get them there. But in the exceptional occasion where a person avoids feeling anything and goes into numbness again and again and again, the only way you can really help them is to snap them out of numbness. And I would personally say, Ania, I don't know if you disagree with this, but I think that coaching people, especially over the phone, isn't always enough for that. You need to so what I've been talking about so far is leverage. You need to give them enough leverage as to why to do it. But then another technique which you need to get people out of that in the first place is what in NLP they call pattern break. You have to do something extreme and outrageous enough to break the pattern. Like the case of the schizophrenic that I was talking about with who thought he was Jesus. They could do any kind of treatment to them. You could see how you'd have all the feelings you want if you start living a better life. Yeah, but I'm Jesus. He had to be shocked out of being numb and shut down, and then you can reach him with leverage. But yeah, so...
yeah, certainly I think in those kinds of cases... telephone or Skype coaching would be inadequate.
And sometimes, Tony Robbins was famous for, and Richard Bandler as well, famous for curing every person who he did on live television, for instance. But the amount of pressure that you have with hundreds of people in front of you, millions of people watching you on TV is enough, again, pattern break. It's enough for leverage to snap you out of it. So it is harder when it's just you and a client or me and a client. And if you recognise yourself in that extreme example that I just gave to you there, Ania, for anyone watching this, I would say, you need to work with someone, first of all, who's going to help you to open your heart. And who's going to help you to wake up to how you feel before you can start getting yourself to do all those things which will lead to you living a better life. Absolutely.
That was fantastic. Thank you, Elwin. I'm sure that will have touched quite a few people out there. So, final question for you, Elwin. How would you describe your ideal client?
What an awesome question. Oh, God, it's hard to say. I suppose my ideal client is someone who is already doing fairly well and they're looking at getting to the next level. I really enjoy helping that kind of person. I enjoy helping kind of person who has all the background knowledge already, which is why, like I said, I tend to work with people who have already seen a lot of practitioners, who are already, in fact, more knowledgeable than a lot of practitioners, and who still haven't got results. And then I help them get to results. So I really enjoy doing that. I think I wouldn't really enjoy working with beginners. I very rarely get them, so I don't even really know. But occasionally I get questions like, where do you get your protein from? And I'm just like, you even think that's an issue? And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. So I probably like people who aren't beginners, to be honest. Hence, that's why my site is called Health Mastery. That's what it's all about. It's about, really getting to the next level. And people who are really keen to make the world a better place, and people who are willing to do whatever it takes to live up to their highest potential. I think that's basically it. And within that, there is a lot of variation in terms of career and age and race and sex and all those kind of things. All those things don't matter. But what everyone who is in health mastery has in common is they all have a high standard, and they're all looking at getting to the next level. And that's what I really love about them, and that's why with every one of them I feel a sense of kinship, even though there might be all kinds of other differences. And that's why you and I first got on as well, right? We have that in common, that love of mastery. But I sense for you like to help to start people off more and to nurture them.
I mean, I think I probably have quite a gentle approach, and I'm very nurturing, and I like to work with people who have obviously want to get healthier, but really are quite confused by the media, and perhaps don't know really what books they should start reading, or where they can source their information from. So really at the complete opposite end of the spectrum, people who know that they should be eating vegetables, but perhaps don't even know which ones are best for them, or how much they should be eating, or what way it's best to prepare them. People who might not have even come across the concept of live cultures, which I guess is less and less common nowadays because of all of the adverts on TV. But those are the kinds of people that I really enjoy working with, are people who would like to learn more, but are really confused right now as to what the right thing to do would be, as well as those people who, I particularly like working with people who are interested in experimenting with new foods and experimenting with different cooking techniques, as well as that's one of my passions. I really enjoy cooking, as I know that you do, and in fact you're very talented in the kitchen, or maybe you don't, but you're very talented anyway. As I know. I should tell the viewers here that you came to my house one day, and I was going to make you dinner, and you just took over in the kitchen and made these amazing soups and salads. It was a very enjoyable experience. It's usually me who does that. Fantastic. Well, it's been a real pleasure talking to you again, Elwin. Is there anything else that you'd like to add at the end of this video?
Yeah, I guess just for people watching this feeling like, wow, this coaching thing is, a really good idea, but I don't know if I can afford it or something like that. I never want it to be, something that people feel any kind of lack, or no encouragement of a victim state. So just to say, yes, it is wonderful to work with someone to encourage you, and often it's worth finding the resources as well. Because often when you say I don't have enough money, it's really a matter of prioritizing. It's what are you choosing to prioritize? Are you prioritizing something to distract yourself and escape from the fact that you don't like your life, or are you going to prioritize investing in creating a better life for yourself? And that's an important choice. But irrespective of any of that, even if it's just not possible for you for whatever reason, and you're happy with that being the case for now, you don't want to prioritize it. Look at, coaching yourself to some degree, and learning about the whole process of coaching. The point of this conversation has not just been for us to talk about what we do, but hopefully to fire you up. I mean, again, my kind of audience, I'm sure your kind of audience as well, Ania, because you tend to attract like, are people who care about people. So even if you don't want to do this professionally, find out about all this stuff. Find out about how to influence people, find out how to direct people, find out how to facilitate people, find out how to nurture people, right? Like all the stuff that we've talked about, all the different methods, so that yes, you can do it to yourself, but so you can do it to other people around you. Not that you should go around actively trying to tell people what's what unless they ask, but let's face it, most of us have someone come to us for some kind of advice at some point, and it's helpful to know how to help them when that comes up. So ideally, if you can, go for it. But even if not, learn how to coach yourself, learn how to coach and help other people, and just realise this isn't something that's, only done by, either peak performers or people who are really badly off. It's everyone else as well. Everyone, we could all do with a coach to help us see all that stuff and to help facilitate us. And
for us to be our best, more than anything.
Yes, for us to live up to our highest potential. And to some degree, it's nice to also coach someone. I'm sure most people watching this, if not all of them, would like to, in some way, at some point, to some degree, help other people. And it feels good to help other people. So And when you learn how to help other people, you also simultaneously learn how to help yourself. So that's what this is all about. It's about helping yourself, helping other people, being open to being helped yourself, which sometimes isn't as easy for some people. If you're a giver kind of person, often you're like, oh, I don't deserve help. Where's that come from, right? Check out, if you feel that, like, oh, I don't deserve coaching, I don't deserve help, I don't, then, check out some stuff on self-esteem, Check out like Nathaniel Brendan, for instance, who's like the world's expert in self-esteem. Look at, oh, you don't deserve to be happy? What, only everyone else deserves to be happy? Right? So that's just like a scattering of different final thoughts, but yeah, I thought I'd share them. And yeah, anything that you would like to share with our viewers before we finish?
I think that probably we've covered a lot today. Just want to thank everyone for tuning in. And just to recap on the websites, if you are already subscribed to Elwin Robinson, you'll know that he's at www.elwinrobinson.com. Is that right?
Yes.
And if you'd like to check out on what I do, that's www.vitalityandfood.com. And hopefully we'll be doing some more of these, right, Elwin?
Absolutely.
Great.
See you again soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.